So happy to be back for another Bluejay Shakeout Podcast. Josh Peterson, Chris Gannon with you as always. Like and subscribe here to the YouTube channel so you get notified each and every time we do one of these episodes. We do them every other week, and that means, Chris, that it's always a race week when you and I are talking, and another one is just about here. How are you feeling? How's the team feeling from the broadest perspective possible? And good to see you again.
Yeah, it's the kids are on fall break this week, so we kind of had a few days off Friday, Saturday, got back to work on Monday this week. I know a bunch of them made quick trips home or just got away for a little bit, so I know they appreciate that downtime, and it's just kind of a unique week with them not having any classes this week. So we try to do a bit of a job to fill their time a little bit so they're not just sitting around doing nothing. But also try to let them relax a little bit. So now we're looking forward to hosting again this week. Course is in phenomenal condition. So just trending really well to host Big East here in 2 weeks as far as the course goes.
I can't believe that it's already almost here. Every time that you and I do a pod, we're like, wow, it's getting closer and getting closer, and it's really getting closer now. Chris, on the last podcast, we discussed some of those last-minute changes in terms of your team's schedule because of some weather. So given the up and down nature of that and maybe how up in the air things were, I have to imagine that you were very pleased with the second place finishes that both of your groups were able to have.
Yeah, we knew that heading up to that meet outside of South Dakota that the competition from a team perspective was going to be a little bit light, mostly an NAIA meet, but collectively the best that both teams have run all year. We were we did a great job executing on the opportunity that we had. It's not what our kids had hoped or wanted to have to be in that scenario as far as, they wanted deeper competition. They wanted a few of those things, but we did a great job executing in the moment of what we had to do. And just really appreciative that Briarcliff was able to accommodate and get us up there and in on short notice. And but both men's and women's team ran very complete races. We hadn't backed off training at all still. So to look at how well we ran, especially with training capacities, was definitely a highlight for the week.
That's awesome. Let's talk about some runners that we have not really chatted about so far this year. One of them, Oliver, he ran his first race as a Blue Jay this season. He finished 5th overall. What was it like, given that he hadn't run in a race this year and he was able to do that?
Oliver's situation is pretty unique. I think he officially made the roster that Wednesday before we raced on Saturday. So Oliver, he's from Estonia. He reached out to us way back, let's say May-ish, I'm going to think, if I recall. And he's in an exchange program from his university back home in Estonia, and Creighton actually happens to be one of the partnerships that they have for this exchange. So he reached out, and the whole process was we didn't know what was happening with the NCAA and roster limits at the time. So Kane really got put into this giant holding pattern. Had it been any other year, next year or the year prior or previous, it would have been easy to navigate that. But with the roster limits, we didn't know what was going to happen. We specifically left a roster spot open for him on our 17 cap in hopes that we would be able to get him cleared. Once he got to campus, then he had to go through the NCAA paperwork, yada, yada, yada. That took some time. NCAA Global had to get involved. It's a pretty normal process for a lot of institutions that bring in athletes from other countries. We don't normally do that. So for us, it was just it was a new adventure. But yeah, we were hopeful that he was going to be able to clear. He's a great guy, good runner, obviously, and he's just fit in really well with the team. And so I think his first practice with us was that week, and then he ripped and raced on that Saturday. So
how has he handled all of that stuff? You'll often hear coaches talk about, control the controllables, focus on the things you can focus on. Like that has to be a lot to go through, especially at such a young age. How do you think he's handled it?
He's pretty chill. I don't know a lot of Estonians, but yeah, it's been really, he's been really grateful for the opportunity. Now, obviously being from the European track setting, their track is very different, and cross country is very different than here in the United States. It's all club-based, so he doesn't necessarily have a regular team that he trains with. He trains with his club, and so depending on what that looks like, it can be a very unique situation as far as, him running with a group of guys or not, or whatever that looks like. And that was one of the things he was most excited about, to run as a team. He's never done that before. Within Estonia, he's a very decorated runner. He's the U20 national champion over 1,500 meters. He placed fourth at the 2025 outdoor championships overall in any age group. That was like 2 weeks before he got here. And right now he's hoping that we can get him into his semester is supposed to end with our semester. So technically he's only going to be here through December right now. He wants to run an indoor race before he heads home and try to break the Estonian U23 indoor record in the mile or the 1,500. We're also currently navigating if he might be able to get his exchange program extended for a second semester, and he'd be able to finish out the spring with us, because he's just been a joy to have around. He brings a lot of good attitude, energy to the team. He fits in really well with the guys, and at the same time, he's a very talented runner for sure.
That's awesome to hear. We've talked a lot on the women's side, Chris, about Taylor, who's continuing to have a really nice season. You had two freshmen, though, elsewhere inside of the top five. It was the first time since 2008 that Creighton had three runners inside of the top five in a race with more than two teams. What did you see from those freshmen? Again, you mentioned the competition, but that had to be really nice to see.
Yeah, Atlee and Reyna were, I don't want to say expected to contribute right away, but there was definitely belief that they could have a positive impact from the beginning. And, Reyna from Texas, and she's a phenomenal runner in her own right down there, and done an amazing job adjusting. She's probably more of a mid-distance specialist. That was the first 6K of her life. And so she's done a phenomenal job. She trains with that top group of ladies in and out of practice. So for her to compete well, and especially at 6K for the first time, not to be unexpected, if you will. And then Atlee's from just down the street in Norris. We were pretty thrilled to get her as an in-state recruit. And if you look back at Atlee's high school career, it's pretty decorated. And so a number of state championships there, both team, individual, those things. And so for her to come in, and she's an athlete that's going to excel as the distance gets longer. I think that she's probably a 10K runner when we move to the track. I don't know if that's right away as a freshman, but definitely by her sophomore year. And so for her to move up to 6K and run well, it was not unexpected as well. So, I think there's a couple of those freshman girls who have stepped in and made an impact. Soph R has done a great job as a freshman already and been able to contribute in that scoring group as well. So we're excited about where we're at right now with that side of things, and just continuing to have the stalwart group of returners on that lady side continue to do their job, and we can hopefully have some good results in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and one of the things you mentioned, Chris, after the race was that you've had some runners that need to get healthy. Like, is that just the name of the game, I guess, at this point in the season? Or is that something that obviously you never want that, but is that like expected, do you think, at this time of the year?
Yeah, I think it's distance running. I think people end up banged up, and so it becomes this thing of managing, like, things are tight or hurt or inflamed, and trying to limit what that actually is. We always talk about, I'd rather be 100% healthy and 80 or 90% fit than be 100% fit and 80 or 90% healthy. And so right now, it's just a matter of a couple of those ladies just being really smart with training and racing load and volume for them, doing our best to keep them healthy. We didn't race Carly 2 weeks ago at Briarcliff, and we're not going to race Tay this week. So we're trying to be as healthy as we can be when it really matters here at Big East. So we'll need some people to step up on those sides to fill in a little bit of those gaps. And the ladies have done a good job of that thus far. It's just a matter of us keep it going.
I love talking to you about your mindset with things. Is that a change in this sport over your time inside of the sport? Like, you hear stories, right, about the football teams of the 50s, the Junction Boys, and how they approach things. And it's like, wow, it's not only like unnecessary, but it's like also dumb to maybe not hydrate. I'm not saying, of course, that was happening 20 years ago, but how has the view of health and making sure that everybody you'd rather be 100% healthy than 100% fit and 80% healthy. How has that changed and evolved in your time in the sport?
Personally, I think that's always kind of been my approach to coaching. I think that probably comes from my exercise science, human performance background. When I start to look at what's actually going on in the body, I also know that generally speaking across the board, that's not common for our sport. And I don't know that it's still all common for our sport at some levels either. But my belief is that if you're confident and healthy going to the start line, your chances of executing the race are going to be much higher than if you go to the start line and you're doubting your ability to finish or compete at the race the way that you want to. And so we always have kind of taken that approach. My first few years here, our team was so small and we were so thin that I had no approach but to be safe with how our training was going and ensure that we were as healthy as we could be. But I think that, that's carried over. And we, like today's actually a Wednesday right now when we're recording this, and today's their Wellness Wednesday. Our athletes have free reign over their Wednesdays. They have a lift on Wednesdays, but I don't care if they run. I don't care if they bike. I don't care if they swim. I don't care if they elliptical. Wednesdays is their day to just listen to their body, and we give them a lot of ownership over that. And so it's pretty interesting to see workout logs come back on Wednesdays and what people choose to do. Some of them yoga, hours swim, whatever it is, and some of them absolutely do go run. But I think it's really important for athletes to have ownership over their training and know their bodies and listen and understand those. I think the biggest thing that Coach Fayers and I will actually see and do is that we actually step in and we'll tell a kid, like, actually, I feel like you probably need a cross-train day or you need a recovery day, or let's not go to the maximum today. I think that is far more common for us to have to do, is to step in and tell someone to back off, than it is for us to be like, hey, let's go grab some more miles. Occasionally that's a conversation, but for us, it's 95% of the time, let's be smart with where we are training wise and ensure that we are healthy and able to compete.
You mentioned it. We're recording on a Wednesday, and this is the last question. As you get ready for another race coming up in a couple of days, you've been at this course once this year in Ashland. You will be there again, of course, in a couple of weeks for the Big East Championships. How are we feeling right now, given that it is this point in the season? You mentioned the things that kind of come with distance running in terms of injuries. Is this kind of where you hoped you would be broadly before the year going into this race?
Yeah, I would actually say that I think we're pretty spot on for what we had hoped and expected. I think that us being healthy is really going to determine those outcomes over the next 2 weeks. But I think that we've got what we thought we were going to get out of our freshmen on both men's and women's side. And I also think we've got what we thought we could get out of our returners on both the men's and women's side. So whether that's Eli Moore having a good race the other day, or Cole, or obviously on the women's side, Kath or Annika, or Soph or Carly stepping into those roles. I really think that, whether this Luke is making the jump as a sophomore, and whoever that is going to be jumping into those important roles, especially heading into Big East, when we're talking about who that 5, 6, and 7 are going to be. I think that's what's really going to be important, to see those kids and step up as, they're finishing up, their potentially their first season as a freshman, or their 4th or 5th season as a 5th-year senior, or, someone who's been around for a while. And so we need those people that, we look at Big East, and those final points are going to, that 5, 6, 7 people pushing are really going to come down to some of those team placements, which is the goal for us to move up and improve where we were a year ago.
Well, next time we chat, we'll talk about that, and we'll also be just a couple of days away from the Big East Championships. I will be there doing some PA work. Really looking forward to that, and looking forward to seeing how you and the rest of the teams run there. Chris Gannon, as always, thanks for joining me. Thanks to everybody for checking out another one of the Bluejay Shakeout pods. I'll just keep saying it. I can't believe we're already this far into the season. I have to imagine you're feeling the same way.
Yeah, it's crazy. We're finishing up a few things at the course this week, in hopes that everything's ready to roll for Big East here in 2 weeks.
Absolutely. Give us a like and subscribe on the way out the door. Tell a friend, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks. For Chris Gannon, I'm Josh Peterson. Thanks so much for watching another edition of the Bluejay Shakeout Podcast.